Welcome, everyone, to Advice on the Charlotte Real Estate Market podcast featuring Mike Sposato, owner of Carolina Realty Advisors. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks for having me. Actually, I'm excited. This is my very first podcast that we're going to be doing to kick off the new series on advice on the Charlotte real estate market. And really the intention, what I want to do, it's going to be all encompassing. So we're going to talk about things like if for realtors, if you ever want to start your own company or start your own team, to, of course, information about the market, submarkets, different types of things like residential, commercial, different facets of commercial real estate. So it's going to be a lot of different topics covered, a lot of advice overall that would help people that are, connoisseurs or, people really are interested in real estate, which honestly, it seems like everybody to a degree has got some level of interest in real estate. So anyway.
Yes, yeah. I even have my real estate license. So, and Charlotte is a hopping area. Well, I know you have been in real estate a minute. So tell us a little bit about your journey and your why. Why did you become a realtor and why did you start your own firm?
Well, when I first moved to Charlotte, long time ago, my first job was out as a business to business sales job. And from that, I was pretty fortunate, did well enough to start to buy my own portfolio of real estate. And as time went on at my corporate job, it became a real grind for me. And I started to think to myself, why am I making all this money for somebody when I could do it for myself? Because I had been recognized in my corporate job as what they called the Rookie of the Year nationwide. And then for the first couple of years that I was in sales, I was the number one salesperson in the country out of 350 sales reps across the United States. And so, I was doing really well and I was learning a lot about not only sales and marketing, but when I got promotions, I learned about sales management, recruiting, sales training, accounting, all the stuff that you would need to know in order to have a fair chance at, having a successful business. And so I got to a point where I literally got burned out, started to have minor health problems that could have escalated if I didn't make a change. And so once I had this portfolio of real estate, took an interest in it, I was like, you know what? I think maybe I'm going to get into real estate. But the funny thing is this kind of dates me. When I started going to get my license, I was only interested. I wasn't committed. And what I mean by that is this is back in a time where, the internet was just coming out. There was no social like media, like there was no Facebook or Instagram or ways to meet people. So I was somewhat newer into Charlotte, even though I had my job here for a while. I worked 24/7, it felt like, for this corporation. So I didn't really have a life outside of work. So I was taking a real estate course because I was interested, but I also just wanted to meet people and get out. And so they used to have to go to a classroom. And when I started, there was 88 people in my class. And of the 88, I believe only like 8 to 10 of us actually passed the class. And, within a couple of years, like 2 years, I think I was the only one that took that class that actually got into real estate and was still doing it.
That's amazing.
It's a big churn in our business, for sure. And, it's something like what I'd like to talk about today is, for those people out there that are thinking they're having some success in real estate and maybe they want to start their own company, either their own team or branch off and start their own company like I did. So we started our company. It was January of 2006. So we're just a couple of weeks away from our 20th anniversary as Carolina Realty Advisors. So
that's amazing. Congratulations. What an achievement.
Thank you.
Yeah, this market is insane. And in your 20 some years, you have seen all the growth and the craziness. Well, what do you find, what is your mission then? Now you've started your own company. What did you decide you wanted it to look like and how have you done that?
That's a great question. So my business partner and I, back when we started the company, we we called ourselves Carolina Realty Advisors because we saw a gap, at least in the residential sector of brokerage, that there was not a lot of what we call savvy business people out doing the real estate sales. It was more or less, just I'm kind of joking when I say this was a lot of part-time people that maybe a woman who's the kids are off to school, husband's
Stay at
got
home mom. Yeah.
so she was out doing it and selling a couple houses to here and there to the girls she played tennis with, and you know brand new agents getting in and really not being trained very well, people who just didn't have a business background. And so therefore what we were seeing is, people were out trying to make a sale so they could make a commission so they could pay their rent or pay for their car bill or whatever it was, but they weren't really taking a higher road and trying to really give advice. Because honestly, we've carved out our slogan. It says really the right real estate advice makes all the difference to our clients. And if somebody were to look at my reviews, you'll see time and time again, it's always the advice, timely advice here or there that saved them thousands of dollars or tons of stress or helped them win a deal or something like that. So it's really that forward thinking level of intelligence in the middle of a deal, or when you're meeting with a new client, that helps them get the outcome they want. And so culturally, we took that approach, and then we backed it with with what we call it's Sandler selling system. That's our sales training model. And if anybody out there listening has ever heard of Sandler, which you can Google, and once you hear it for the first time and you start looking it up, it's everywhere. But when I first got in the business, I hadn't heard of it either, and I became a member of their President's Club, and that's a long story within itself. But the Sandler sales approach is really, it's like a higher end psychological based approach that's really about needs analysis. It's not feature and benefits at all, ever. It's always about talking to your clients, really what's in it for them. How is this going to benefit them? What do they need? Because, the one other thing that going back to like why we started the business is because, if I were to ask you, Regina, just honestly, because I never asked you this question before, but what is it that you think real estate agents sell? What is it we do?
Most of us would say a home, a house.
Right. Yep. Or I hear people when I interview them like, oh, we sell dreams and things like that. I disagree. I personally think what we sell are real estate transaction services. Because if you think about it, most people, when they usually buy a home on average, like once every 6 to 7 years on average, they'll move. So when you only do something that infrequently, learning the dance moves, how to do it consistently the right way is difficult. So showing a house is easy. Listing a house is a little bit more difficult, but the hardest part is taking somebody from where they are today on step 1 and step 100, the outcome of selling a house, buying a house, or selling and buying a house. And there's so many little things along the way that could go wrong, that if they do go wrong, could cost the consumer thousands of dollars, maybe even more. And not only that, but the amount of stress and sleepless nights and things that can happen that, unfortunately do happen if you don't have a forward-thinking advisor as a realtor who's really in your corner.
Oh, I love that. And I that makes so much sense. So what is important in your opinion as the owner of a firm when looking for your team?
To hiring, well, I learned this lesson many times over, and the first couple of times I learned it the hard way. I think as a broker, if you're an agent who starts to gain some traction, you kind of have your approach down and you have a repeatable revenue model where you have inbound leads or something that's working for you, where you can consistently bring in a certain amount of business. In order to grow, you really have to have 2 key people, in my opinion. One of them is somebody on the back end who can handle a lot of the tedious day-to-day paperwork.
Mhm.
The paperwork component of doing a real estate transaction literally is like a 6 to 10 hour endeavor.
Wow.
So if you're going to do, 4 or 5 deals in a month, that and alone is a really good part-time job just on the paperwork side. But then you've got to worry about compliance, technology, things of that nature. So you have to have somebody who's almost like an office manager who really is good with paperwork and enjoys doing that. But secondarily, I think having a licensed assistant, someone who can help you with open houses, showing property, and doing things that requires to have a license. And so, in your first couple of years, you might have to forego putting all the money in your pocket in order to get the right people
Yeah.
behind you.
Invest in your
Yeah,
business.
invest in your business, really. I mean,
Yeah.
it's people initially. And so, I would say if I had to do it all over again, I would look for an office manager who was passionate and excited to be there and was okay with some of the mundane paperwork and was
Mhm.
looking to grow and help you grow. And similar with a licensed assistant, and so much that you want somebody who is maybe tied to your pay plan. In other words,
Yeah.
instead of just giving them
Yeah.
a base salary, give them something where they can make every time you make a sale, when they're involved in it, you can give them a percentage of it so that they're excited to continue to go out and help you and grow and so forth. So I think position wise, you need to have those two people, or it's going to be a long sled to get to where you want to go.
I love that idea. That's amazing. So what is your method for recruiting great agents?
That's a challenge because being a smaller firm, there's right now I think we have 15 total people in our firm, from admin staff, full-time licensed assistants, and then agents in general. So it's not easy recruiting because we're recruiting and we're working against like the Keller Williams, the EXP, those bigger firms. And so, like as an example, Keller Williams has people that are not actually agents that are paid as recruiters, but they have a license, they work at Keller Williams, but their deal is to go out and host events. And when people come through and they graduate from getting their real estate license, their name automatically gets put on a list with their phone number and contact info. And that person whose full-time job is recruiting has all the time set aside to go after those people. Same with EXP. And actually, I have that list too. I just don't have the time to do it as a business owner. The one thing, though, to beware for those who are getting into the business, there are companies out there that monetize their training. So there's companies, if you go to work there, first thing, literally, when you fill out all your paperwork, you have to give them your credit card, and they will charge you for different training programs. So they're monetizing the training. They charge monthly fees. If you're on a team, the company takes a split, and then the team lead takes a split. So your take-home dollar gets really diluted when you're working at a lot of the bigger firms out there. They just don't really tell you all that up front. I've never been somebody who'd want to work in a bigger firm because I've worked in a big company in corporate America and hated it. I'd rather work in a smaller firm where I have direct access, to the owners or my agents, and everybody knows everybody. And it's kind of, almost like a tight knit type of family type of organization. And that's more like who we are. We're not a boutique firm by any stretch, but the agents I look for, they got to have sales experience, or believe it or not, I love school teachers.
How about that?
Yeah, because school teachers, if they've never been in sales, what you're taught to become a teacher is to take and build lesson plans. And that's how we sell, is like a little mini lesson plans. It's taking a big topic like buying a house and being able to break it down into tiny little digestible steps where you can help educate your clients along the way. And teachers make really great real estate agents. Obviously, somebody who's got previous sales experience. And I also like looking for people who have what I call grit. And so grit could mean different things for different people. For me, grit means you're not going to quit because things will get tough in this business. They
Sure.
do all the time. Sometimes it's really, really lean, and sometimes it's you're making money hand over fist and everything in between. So if you're the kind of person that's going to just crumble when things get, rough, then this is not for you. Because at the end of the day, people don't realize that real estate agents, what we really are is we're independent contractors. There's no base salary. There's no benefits. There's no health insurance. So we're independent contractors that are really outside sales position people. So we get to eat what we kill, so to speak. I know it sounds kind of graphic, but it's the truth. It's like if you can't consistently bring business to the table, then sooner or later you're going to be out of the business. And so finding those kinds of people with grit, sales experience, and that kind of that go-getter, like driven mentality is critical.
What is your philosophy then once you find that amazing person in training them, developing them, mentoring them?
All right. Well, that's another great question. So early on, because I actually have my degree in education. So when I graduated and was going through early development in my career, I took a lot of sales training courses, like I mentioned, Sandler sales training. And I also have a master's certification in neurolinguistic programming. So if anybody knows what NLP is, then you know. And if you don't know, I don't have any time here to even get into that topic. But what we do is when we onboard somebody, we have a whole video series internally in our company G Drive that's got over 100 different little videos that are anywhere from 3 or 4 minutes to 10 minutes long, so they don't make you gloss over and fall asleep. But they're the foundation to get you into the training room, so to speak. And so you kind of first couple of days you'll be watching those videos, learning about some of the software programs and things that we do. But then once you kind of been in a company for a couple of days, we start to do in class, like in training, where we do role playing, rehearsing, scenarios that come up every day in our, real estate experience. I've written a book. I've got,
Wow.
like I said, the videos, we have audio reinforcement and a little flash drive that we give to everybody and require that they listen to them. But overall, it's an all-encompassing training program. And, when you tell people that you have a great sales training program, everybody's like, yeah. Everyone. And even I was when I first got in, because I was like, well, I was winning all these awards in corporate America. I don't need sales training. And boy, was I wrong, because selling in corporate America is 180 degrees different than selling real estate in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's just different. And so it took me a couple of months to realize that. And once I realized it and jumped into the Sandler program, then I was able to extrapolate pieces from that and build a proprietary sales training program. The good news is the people who have gone through it in the past and they've embraced it, even if they've left the company for whatever the reason might be, they're still successful in this business.
That's
And
amazing.
it's kind of, I'm proud of it. And it's like, they're like little ninjas and they're speckled all over the area. And some people left because, they started having children and they lived too far away for daycare and, that kind of thing. And other people, maybe just whatever the reason was, they just went a different direction. But the ones that were like my shining stars, all of them are still in the business and all of them are thriving.
That's
So,
amazing.
yeah.
What kind of software programs do you use to support your operations?
So that's there's a lot of different, let's start with the CRM. So a CRM is basically where you're going to keep all your leads, prospects, et cetera. We use Follow Up Boss. There's others out there. Some of them are really good. Some of them aren't. But that's like the main hub for keeping track with everybody. And so Follow Up Boss is really important. And luckily we were early on, I guess, into getting into Follow Up Boss. And very luckily, my previous business partner, he's still here, he works here. I bought him out and he's one of our agents now. But he and our assistant back then, both of those guys were so smart when it came to technology that, I mean, the things they've done in this company with technology, there's no way I could have done it personally, but it's like we have the software programs and systems in place that you would see at like a major, like, you know, a company that's got, 1,000 or 15,000 agents across the country kind of thing. So we've leveled up and we've made those investments. So we have a variety of different things. The main one being Follow Up Boss is one of the ones that we use. Obviously, every agent's going to have access to the MLS. And then from there, there's going to be some back office things that we use. And some people, like everybody's got like DocuSign or Zip forms. We use a company or a software program called Brokerment for tracking all of our deals. And so what that means is like if you were going to buy a house, Regina, and you were my client, as soon as we agree that you're going to work with me and vice versa, and we sign an agreement, that starts a new file in our Brokerment. And then as we go along each step of the way, there's a checklist of things that need to be put into there so that we make sure we're, on top of everything. Our transaction managers keeping up with everything. We're compliant, and that kind of thing, just in case real estate commission will ever knock on our door. So we've thought through all of it, and we've been around. And like I said, we're just weeks away from being in business for 20 years. So having the right software programs that are going to help you grow are important.
My very last question. You're almost at your 20-year anniversary. Mike, what are you most proud of when you look back?
That's a good question. I hadn't thought about that. I try to stay humble and all this stuff. And just, I think probably the sales training and helping people who have come in the door that thought real estate was going to be, get rich quick, easy. They didn't need everything. They didn't need the training. They just, they thought they were hot shots, and taking them and kind of building the foundation underneath of them and helping mentor them, support them, coach them all along the way while still, producing broker and, kind of burning the candle at both ends. But I think that's probably it. The people that are still in the business that have ever worked here, if anybody were to talk to them, my gut says you're going to hear a lot of amazing stories about the things we did to develop their careers. And I think that's probably the thing I'm most proud of.
That's amazing. Well, congrats. That's a huge accomplishment. And in such a competitive market like Charlotte. Yeah.
It's not easy, and nothing worth it ever is easy. Recruiting's hard especially when you're going against big firms that are, there's a firm called EXP, which I'm sure you're aware of, and that you go to work there and they have it's like multi-level marketing. It's like a pyramid. It's essentially, if you went to work there, you pay them a certain amount of money. If you find two people, those people underneath you pay money, you get a little bit of that. And then the people they hire, you get a little bit of that, and so on and so forth. And so as an example, I've run up against EXP agents that don't even sell real estate. They just do that recruiting thing, and that's how they make a little, month to month passive income. So you've got all kinds of different business models all over, but here it's basically you get your license, you come in, you get the sales training, and it's not just once. We do sales training probably 3 to 4 times a year. It's the same information. It's just sometimes a little bit slightly different viewpoint, because most people I find most people are 2 or 3 time learners. And I don't know if you know what that means or not, but it means the first time they don't get it, it just goes right over their head. Second time they're like, oh, that made a lot more sense. And then the third time they really, really get it. And so, if somebody's out there and they're like, I need mentorship, I need a coach, I need training, I need support, I need leads, I need all of that in order to get going. That's the smart person. That's the humble, smart person. The person out there that thinks they're, they don't need any of this stuff, they're just fooling themselves, because this industry is not easy at all.
Well, Mike, congrats on your very first podcast, with many more to come. Mike Sposato, owner of Carolina Realty Advisors in Charlotte, North Carolina. Thank you so much for today.
Yeah, thanks, Regina. I appreciate your help.